The portfolio case slips from my fingers, striking the hardwood floor with a dull thump that echoes through Rebecca's kitchen. The sound seems louder than it should be, as if the house itself is reacting to what I've just overheard. For a moment, everything freezes. Daniel, my brother-in-law, snaps his head toward me, his eyes widening in a flash of unmistakable guilt before he can hide it. "We need to start figuring out how to get her out now that the business deal finally came through," Rebecca had just said, her voice carrying clearly from the next room. 5 months. That's how long I've been living under their roof, paying rent that's only slightly lower than market value in this expensive Denver suburb. Today should have been my quiet anniversary of sorts, the day that marked half a year of rebuilding my life after grad school. Instead, it's the moment I realize what this arrangement has actually been. Allison? Allison? Rebecca whirls around from the counter, one hand flying up to her throat as if she's been caught doing something far worse than talking behind my back. "I didn't hear you come in." I should respond, but the words get stuck somewhere deep in my chest. The betrayal feels heavy, lodged in my throat like a stone I can't swallow. My whole body feels strangely hollow, as if someone has scooped out everything solid inside me and left behind only a thin shell standing in their spotless kitchen. The marble countertops gleam beneath the lights. The fruit bowl in the center of the island looks like something staged for a magazine photo. Every detail in this room is perfect. And suddenly, none of it feels real. The arrangement was never about helping family. It was a financial placeholder they've been eager to eliminate. "You're home early," Daniel says quietly, shifting his weight and taking a small step backward, already removing himself from whatever confrontation might follow. I remember the dinner in March when they first suggested this living arrangement. Rebecca had leaned across the table and squeezed my hand warmly. "What kind of sister would I be if I didn't help you get back on your feet after grad school?" What kind indeed. Back then, I'd felt genuinely grateful, not just for the room upstairs, but for what I thought was real support. I'd paid the rent they asked for every single month without delay. I cooked dinner 3 nights a week. I watched Jeremy whenever their babysitter canceled. I scrubbed bathrooms, vacuumed staircases, folded laundry, and listened patiently when Rebecca complained about clients who didn't understand her design work. The first crack in the illusion appeared last month, when I casually mentioned staying through winter. Rebecca's smile tightened just slightly at the edges, her fingers tapping against her coffee mug in a quick, nervous rhythm. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she'd said. Now it all makes sense. I crouch down and pick up my fallen portfolio, forcing my hands to steady. 5 years of design school and a master's program trained me to stay precise, even under pressure. I straighten and meet Rebecca's gaze. "I heard everything," I say quietly. My voice sounds calmer than I feel. "Let's just be honest for once." Rebecca's cheeks flush, but the embarrassment fades quickly, replaced by practiced composure. "We were just talking about future plans for the nursery." Her hand drifts to her stomach, even though her pregnancy still isn't visible. "Rebecca." The tone of my voice stops her mid-sentence. "I heard what you said. The business deal came through, so you don't need my rent money anymore." Daniel takes another step back. It's what he always does when tension appears. Retreat. Let Rebecca take control while he fades quietly into the background. Rebecca straightens her shoulders, indignation replacing guilt. "You shouldn't be listening to private conversations in someone else's home, Allison." Someone else's home. Not our home. Not your home, too. Someone else's. The words hit harder than I expect. I've spent 5 months contributing to this household in every possible way, yet I've always been a temporary guest, an intruder. Never truly family, despite the blood we share. "How long do I have?" I ask, holding my portfolio tightly against my chest. Inside are the early sketches for the downtown contract that could change everything for my career, a project that requires me to stay within commuting distance of the city. "We can talk about the details later," Rebecca says briskly, shifting into business mode. "We should sit down and figure out a timeline that works for everyone." Fair. As if anything about the situation has ever been fair. I nod once and turn toward the staircase leading up to my small bedroom. Each step feels heavier than the last as reality settles in. I'm staring down the possibility of homelessness while working on the most important project of my professional life. Behind me, Rebecca whispers sharply to Daniel. This is exactly why we needed to plan it carefully. I keep climbing, my thoughts already racing through possibilities and calculations. One thing is absolutely clear. I was never family to them. Just a convenient solution to a temporary problem. And now I have a problem of my own to solve. The following afternoon, the glow from Rebecca's laptop lights my face as I sit at the desk in the living room, staring at the screen with my fingers frozen above the keyboard. I hadn't intended to open her account. The shared computer simply loaded her email automatically when I logged in to check my deadlines. But now that it's open, I can't look away. Contract finalized. $175,000 commission. The subject line burns across the screen. The timestamp shows the email was sent 3 weeks ago. My stomach tightens as I scroll through the thread. Congratulations pour in from their business partner. They haven't been struggling financially for weeks, maybe months. I grip the edge of the desk as a wave of nausea rolls through me. We need to figure out how to handle the Allison situation now that we're financially stable again, Rebecca had written. The pregnancy gives us the perfect excuse without looking heartless. The perfect excuse. Like I'm a piece of furniture they no longer need. I close the email and stand slowly, my legs shaky beneath me. For months, I've paid rent, cooked their meals, cleaned their house, and watched their child while believing I was helping families survive a difficult time. The truth stings like winter wind against bare skin. That evening, Rebecca sets the dinner table with careful precision, placing my seat at the far end like a guest rather than part of the household. Daniel sits at the head with his arms folded, his eyes fixed on his plate. Daniel mentioned something that concerns me, Rebecca says casually, as she serves the pot roast I prepared earlier that day. He said you've been a little too friendly with him. The accusation hits like a slap. I turn to Daniel, waiting for him to deny it. Instead, he avoids my gaze and gives the smallest nod when I stare at him in disbelief. That isn't true, I say evenly, though adrenaline surges through my chest. And you know it. Rebecca's hand settles protectively on her stomach again. We've also noticed some people visiting when we weren't home. My fork clinks loudly against the plate. What people? I haven't had a single visitor. Jeremy mentioned strangers, she says. Children don't lie about things like that. The lies pile up, absurd and impossible to argue with. Slowly, I realize what they're doing. They're building a case, creating reasons to push me out now that they don't need my rent money. I think, Rebecca continues carefully, lowering herself into her chair, that you might be happier somewhere else, especially since we'll need your room very soon. The nursery. Of course. How soon? I ask quietly. 3 weeks should be plenty of time, Rebecca says calmly. The painters are scheduled for the 4th. My heart pounds. 3 weeks? In this housing market? Daniel clears his throat. We looked online. There are plenty of options. With 6 to 12-month waiting lists, I reply, and first month, last month, and security deposits. Rebecca smiles faintly. You've been living here rent-free for months. Surely you've saved something. Rent-free. The words nearly choke me. I stand abruptly and go to my room, returning moments later with a folder of bank statements. I lay them on the table and point to the highlighted transfers. I've paid rent every month, on time, exactly what you asked for. Rebecca barely glances at them. We hate to do this, but family comes first. Our growing family needs the space. Family comes first. The irony burns like acid in my chest. My downtown client expects daily meetings for the next 3 months. Moving far away could ruin the biggest opportunity of my career. But the trust between us is gone. And homelessness would destroy everything. Later that night, I sit in my room staring at the financial records proving I've done everything right. One question keeps circling my thoughts. Do I confront their lies and risk being thrown out immediately? Or quietly plan my exit and protect my future? Standing up for the truth feels right. But homelessness would destroy everything I've worked toward. What do you choose when principles collide with survival? I slide the statements carefully back into their folder, my mind spinning with limited options and the bitter taste of betrayal. Rebecca doesn't waste any time. The next morning, my phone rings repeatedly before I've even had coffee. Aunts, cousins. How could you leave your sister when she's pregnant? Rebecca told us you found a new place closer to work. I stare out the window at Rebecca watering flowers in the yard, while Aunt Margie lectures me about family loyalty. Rebecca notices me watching and waves sweetly. When I get home from work that evening, 4 cardboard boxes sit in the middle of my room. My design portfolios had been shoved inside carelessly. Pages bent, corners wrinkled, fabric samples tangled with toiletries. I started packing for you, Rebecca says from the doorway. Just trying to help. I notice a small tear in the presentation board I need for tomorrow's meeting. Oh no, did that get damaged? She says with fake concern. Moving can be so chaotic. The next morning, my phone displays a message, unable to connect to Wi-Fi. I try the password again. And again. Nothing. After several attempts, I knock on their bedroom door. Daniel answers wearing a bathrobe, avoiding eye contact. Changed the password yesterday. Security reasons. I'll send it later. My presentation is due in 3 hours. I grab my materials and head to a coffee shop, hoping their internet will be enough. That afternoon, Rebecca calls as I leave work. "Just letting you know the painters are coming Monday for your room." "Our nursery," she corrects herself. "That's 2 weeks earlier than we agreed," I remind her. "We found someone available sooner. Lucky timing, right?" Apartment hunting takes over my evenings. Every application ends the same way. We've selected another candidate. One landlord finally admits the truth. Over 80 applicants for a single one-bedroom unit in my price range. For a few nights, my friend Cynthia lets me sleep on her couch. Just until the weekend, she promises. But when her boyfriend unexpectedly moves in, the arrangement ends quickly. That night, I park behind the design studio. I recline my seat as far back as it will go and try to sleep. Rest comes in short, restless bursts between passing cars and the uncomfortable pressure of the gear shift against my leg. The temperature drops into the low 40s. My thin jacket offers almost no warmth. By morning, my fingers are too stiff to hold a pencil properly. My client notices the shadows under my eyes. "Are you sure you can meet our deadline, Allison? The presentation seems unfinished." "Absolutely," I lie, though my design mock-ups lack the precision they normally contain. The following nights alternate between budget motels and my car. Each morning, I return to Rebecca and Daniel's house to shower and change, timing my arrival for when they've left for work. The simple act of using the bathroom in what was once my home now requires military-level planning. My stomach knots at the sound of a key in the lock, afraid Rebecca might return unexpectedly. I've started eating meals in my car, avoiding the kitchen altogether. The expense of takeout food drains my savings money that should be going toward a security deposit. The winter chill seeps through my car windows. When the temperature drops below freezing, I surrender more of my dwindling funds to another motel room. The pattern becomes unsustainable. My bank account shrinks while my anxiety expands. A perfect inverse relationship. "You look like hell," Alan says when I stumble into the office. She's new to the design team, hired just 2 months ago. We've exchanged pleasantries, but little else. I mumble something about insomnia while attempting to focus on the computer screen. Later, Ellen places a coffee on my desk and pulls up a chair. "My apartment has a pull-out couch," she says without preamble. "It's not fancy, but it's yours for as long as you need it." I start to reach for my wallet. "I can pay." "No." Her hand covers mine, warm and firm. "I was homeless once too. This is how we break the cycle." The tears I've been holding back for weeks threaten to spill over, but I manage a nod of gratitude. Saturday arrives with Rebecca's baby shower. I consider skipping it, but doing so would only fuel more family speculation. I arrive bearing a gift-wrapped bassinet, playing my part in this charade. The living room overflows with family and friends. Presents pile high on the dining table, the same table where Rebecca had told me I wasn't family. "I want to thank Allison," Rebecca announces, glass of sparkling cider raised, "for understanding our need for family space and graciously moving out." 20 pairs of eyes turn my way. "Don't you want to say something about your new place?" The room grows quiet. I feel the weight of their expectation, the script I'm supposed to follow. Lie politely, protect Rebecca's image, maintain the fiction that this was all planned and amicable. Something shifts inside me, a quiet strength replacing the fear that's been my constant companion. "I don't have a new place yet," I say, my voice steadier than I expected. "The housing market is difficult, as you well know." The silence that follows carries a physical weight. My aunt's wine glass halts midway to her lips. My mother's smile freezes. Rebecca's face flushes crimson. In that moment of uncomfortable truth, I realize I don't need to protect Rebecca's image at the cost of my own truth. The revelation doesn't solve my housing crisis, but it loosens something tight around my chest, the first full breath I've taken in weeks. 3 days later, Ellen introduces me to her landlord, an elderly woman who owns several small properties on the edge of Denver. "It's basically a shoebox," Ellen warns as we drive to see the studio apartment, "but it's clean and the rent is reasonable." Along the way, Ellen shares her own story, how her brother stole her inheritance after their parents died, leaving her homeless during her final year of college. "Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty," she says, making a sharp turn. "Sometimes family is just who shows up when everyone else walks away." A week later, after careful consideration, the studio apartment is indeed tiny, barely room for a bed and small table, but the windows face east, perfect morning light for drawing. The landlord, impressed by Ellen's recommendation, waives the security deposit. "You can move in tomorrow," she says, handing me the keys. "First month's rent due next week." That evening, Ellen's friends arrived with housewarming gifts. A futon from someone's guest room, mismatched dishes, a small desk rescued from a corporate office renovation. By midnight, the tiny space resembles a home. My home. I hang my single print of vintage Denver skyline on the wall above the desk. It's not much, but it's mine. Each night, I document every interaction with Rebecca and Daniel, every false accusation, every small cruelty. The record grows, a chronicle of truth. 13 months later, the phone rings. Rebecca's number flashes on the screen, the first contact since I moved out. I stare at it, remembering the girl who slept in her car, afraid and alone. That girl no longer exists. I answer the call. "Hello, Rebecca." "Allison." Her voice lacks its usual confidence. "How are you?" "I'm doing well, working on a new restaurant design." I keep my tone neutral, neither friendly nor cold. Professional. The line goes quiet for several seconds. That's good." Another pause. "I wasn't sure you'd answer." I wait, saying nothing. The space between us fills with unspoken history. "We've hit a rough patch," Rebecca finally continues, her composed facade cracking. "The business collapsed. The house. We lost the house last month." My fingers tighten around the phone. For a moment, I remember sitting in my car in February, the windows fogging with my breath as I tried to sleep, my toes numb with cold. "Where are you staying now?" I ask, my voice steady. "We're in a motel," Rebecca's voice breaks. "Just temporarily. The kids?" She stops, composes herself. "We have 2 now, Jeremy and little Sophia. She's 4 months old." I jot down notes on my sketchpad. 2 children, no home, business failed. I approach this conversation like a design problem. Assess the situation, identify resources, determine options. "How long can you stay at the motel?" I ask. 3 more days, maybe 5 if Daniel picks up some extra work. Her voice grows desperate as I remain measured, rather than immediately offering help. "We've applied for apartments, but with the business bankruptcy on our record." I nod, though she can't see me. The Denver housing market hasn't become any more forgiving in the past year. "The children shouldn't suffer for adult problems," Rebecca says, her voice taking on a familiar persuasive tone. "They're innocent in all this." The statement hits me like a physical blow. I close my eyes and see myself curled up in the backseat of my Honda, shivering under a thin blanket, the January wind whistling through a window that wouldn't fully close. I had been innocent too. "I understand children shouldn't suffer," I reply evenly. "No one should." "Look, I know things weren't perfect when you lived with us," Rebecca continues. "We weren't at our best back then, but it wasn't that serious. Everyone goes through rough patches." "Wasn't that serious?" The dismissal solidifies something in me. I remember the boxes of my belongings stacked haphazardly in the hallway, design materials damaged beyond repair. I remember Daniel changing the Wi-Fi password without telling me, claiming security concerns when I needed to submit client work. "Rebecca," I say carefully, "what exactly are you asking me for?" She hesitates. "We need somewhere to stay, just until we get back on our feet. A month, maybe 2. Her voice drops to a whisper. "Blood is thicker than water, Allie. We're family." Family. The word that once would have compelled me to open my doors without question now rings hollow. Rebecca still sees me only as a resource, not as a person who was vulnerable and was hurt. As Rebecca's voice broke with tears, I felt a momentary urge to rescue them. Should I open my home to the very people who had left me homeless, or was maintaining my hard-won boundaries the healthier choice for everyone? "Let me think about this and call you back," I say, ending the call before emotion can cloud my judgment. I immediately dial Ellen. Her voice grounds me, warm and familiar. "They lost everything," I explain, pacing my small apartment. "They want to stay with me." "And how do you feel about that?" Ellen asks, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Conflicted. They're in trouble, but I trail off, looking around my studio apartment, my sanctuary, my hard-won peace. "Remember where you were a year ago," Ellen says gently. "Remember how far you've come. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary." We spend the next hour researching family shelters and housing assistance programs in Denver. Ellen emails me links while I compile information on rental assistance, food banks, and emergency housing options. "This is genuinely helpful," Ellen reassures me. "More helpful than sacrificing your well-being." By midnight, I've created a comprehensive document of resources. It's the kind of help I wish someone had given me. Practical, thorough, respectful of their agency. My phone rings again just as I'm preparing for bed. Daniel this time, not Rebecca. "Allison, I need to tell you something." His voice sounds different, weary, but somehow more present than I remember. "Those things Rebecca said about you when you were living with us, about being inappropriate with me," he pauses. "They weren't true. None of it was true." I sit on the edge of my bed, stunned by this admission, 13 months too late. "Why are you telling me this now?" I ask. "Because we need your help," he admits. "But you deserve the truth first." After we hang up, I check my email to find a message from my mother. Word of Rebecca and Daniel's financial collapse has spread through the family. The subject line reads, "We need to talk about your sister." I close my laptop and look around my small apartment. the space that's mine alone. Tomorrow, I'll call Rebecca with resources instead of refuge. Tonight, I'll sleep peacefully in the home I've created for myself. 2 days later, the sharp knock at my door comes just after 7. No text, no warning call. Just 3 rapid taps that echo through my studio apartment like gunshots. I'm halfway through dinner, a simple bowl of pasta at my fold-down table, when I hear my father's voice through the door. "Allison, it's Dad and Mom. We need to talk." My stomach tightens as I open the door. They stand shoulder to shoulder in the narrow hallway, Mom's fingers working the clasp of her purse, open and closed with nervous energy. Dad's usual confident posture is noticeably diminished, his shoulders slightly hunched. "Can we come in?" Mom asks, her eyes already darting past me to assess my living situation. I step aside, gesturing them into my home, all 400 square feet of it. The bed that doubles as my couch, the kitchenette with exactly 2 feet of counter space, the drawing table where I create the designs that have slowly rebuilt my life. Dad clears his throat. "We've spoken with Rebecca and Daniel. They're in a real bind, honey. They need somewhere to stay," Mom adds, her voice dropping to that soft, persuasive tone she uses when she wants something without having to directly ask. "She's your sister, and those are your niece and nephew we're talking about." I say nothing, just let the silence fill the room until Dad continues. "Just for a month or 2, until they find something," he offers, as if this compromise is reasonable. Family needs to stick together during hard times. Mom's fingers finally still on her purse. "If you can't find it in your heart to help them, I don't know how we can all gather for holidays anymore. The tension would be unbearable. The threat hangs in the air between us." I take a deep breath and walk to my desk, retrieving a folder I'd hoped I wouldn't need to share. "Please sit down," I say, gesturing to my bed and the single chair by my desk. I remain standing. I hand them each a stapled packet. "This is a comprehensive list of housing assistance programs in Denver. Section 8, vouchers, family shelters with private rooms, rental assistance foundations, churches that help with security deposits." I point to the highlighted sections. I've marked the ones that specialize in families with young children. My mother stares at the papers as if they're written in a foreign language. "But you have space here." "I don't, actually," I interrupt quietly. "This apartment is barely big enough for me." "But that's not really the point, is it?" I sit on the edge of my desk, looking at the people who raised me. When Rebecca and Daniel pushed me out of their home, I spent nights sleeping in my car. In February, the temperature dropped to 19 degrees. My father's face pales. "You never told us that. Would you have believed me over Rebecca?" She told everyone I was leaving by choice. My voice remains steady, but my hands tremble slightly. While I was looking for safe places to park overnight, they were in their 4-bedroom house with the heated floors Rebecca was so proud of installing. Mom looks down at the resource list again, her fingers tracing over the names of organizations. "I rebuilt my life without family support," I continue. "I found housing, kept my job, and created a new support network. They can do the same with the resources I'm offering." I tap the papers in their hands. Everything they need is right there. 2 weeks later, we all sit around my parents' dining room table, the first family dinner since Rebecca and Daniel's financial collapse. The tension is thick enough to cut with the butter knife beside my plate. Rebecca wears the mantle of victimhood like a designer dress, tailored perfectly to her frame. "It's just hard to understand," she says, looking directly at our mother. "Allison has space, but she won't share with family in need, after everything we did for her." That's my cue. I rise from my chair, retrieving folders from my bag. With deliberate calm, I distribute copies to everyone at the table. "This is a timeline," I explain, remaining standing while they all sit with papers in hand. "From the day I moved in with Rebecca and Daniel to the day I was forced out. It includes dates, conversations, and actions. You'll find my rent payments documented on page 2. The accusations Rebecca made against me are on page 3, along with witness statements from people who were actually in their home during that time." Rebecca's face flushes. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to make us—" "It's accurate." Daniel's quiet voice cuts through his wife's protest. "Everything she wrote happened exactly that way." My mother's hand covers her mouth as she reads, her eyes widening at certain passages. Dad flips through the pages with increasing discomfort. "I don't share this to hurt anyone," I say, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "But I can't allow this story to be rewritten. I've learned something important this past year." I take a deep breath. I've found that true family doesn't have to share blood. It shares respect, honesty, and support. In the weeks that follow, I hear through Ellen that Rebecca and Daniel applied for housing through one of the programs I recommended. They qualified for emergency assistance based on having young children. The relationship with my parents hangs in uncertain territory. Tense phone calls, awkward text messages, neither fully estranged nor truly reconciled. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, I find an envelope in my mailbox with my mother's distinctive handwriting across the front. Inside is a single sheet of stationery, folded precisely in thirds. I hold it, unopened, wondering what bridges can be rebuilt and which ones should remain in ashes. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my condominium, casting golden patterns across the hardwood floors I selected myself. 6 months after purchasing this place, I still catch myself pausing to absorb the reality that these walls, this space, this sanctuary, belongs entirely to me. The nameplate on my desk catches the light. Allison Hartwell Designs, building beauty from blank slates. I run my fingers across the engraved letters, remembering sleeping in my car, wondering if my career would survive. Now my downtown office sits just 10 minutes away, and my client list grows monthly. Throughout the condo, framed photos tell the story of my chosen family. Ellen laughing during our hiking trip to Boulder, our impromptu Thanksgiving dinner when 4 of us crammed around my tiny table. The day my design for the Westbrook Hotel lobby was unveiled, with Ellen and our friends cheering in the background. Not a single photo shows Rebecca or Daniel. I adjust the last centerpiece as the doorbell rings. My first real housewarming party. Not in someone else's home, not in a cramped studio apartment, but in a space I designed to reflect every aspect of who I've become. "This place is absolutely gorgeous," Ellen says, stepping inside with a bottle of champagne. Others follow. Colleagues, friends, neighbors, all people who showed up when it mattered. "You've created something spectacular here." The afternoon unfolds with laughter and conversation flowing as freely as the wine. So different from those tense dinners at Rebecca and Daniel's, where I constantly calculated how to appear grateful enough, helpful enough, invisible enough. "A toast?" calls out Jackson from the design firm, to Allison and her incredible new home. Glasses rise, but Ellen steps forward. "If I may," she says, her voice softening, "I want to toast something beyond these beautiful walls." She turns to face me directly. "To Allison's resilience. When I met you, you were sleeping in your car and still showing up to work with brilliant designs. You never broke, never compromised your integrity, never stopped believing in your worth." My eyes dampen as Ellen continues. "You taught me that family isn't defined by blood, but by loyalty and truth. You've built more than a home here. You've built a life that honors who you truly are." The words sink into my chest, warming places that once felt permanently frozen. Later, after the last guest leaves, my phone buzzes with a text from my mother, confirming our coffee meeting tomorrow. We've been carefully rebuilding our relationship, one conversation at a time. The cafe we meet at sits halfway between our homes, neutral territory. My mother arrives first, already nursing a cup of tea, the timeline document I created over a year ago spread on the table before her. The edges are worn, the creases deep from repeated folding and unfolding. "I read it again last night," she says, without preamble. "I think I understand a little more each time." I order my coffee and sit across from her. Understanding is all I ever wanted. "I should have seen it sooner," she admits, carefully refolding the document. "Your father and I were so conditioned to believe Rebecca's version of events. She was always so convincing." We talk for nearly an hour, the conversation easier than it's been in months. As we prepare to leave, she mentions Thanksgiving, still 3 months away. "We'd love to have you, of course," she says. "And Ellen, too, if she'd like to come. Any of your friends, really. The house gets too quiet with just your father and me." The invitation sits between us, not a demand, not an obligation, but a genuine opening. Driving home, I pass Rebecca and Daniel's old house. A young couple lives there now with a toddler who rides his tricycle on the same driveway where I once unloaded groceries, believing I belonged. I feel no pull, no longing, no pain, just the peaceful acknowledgement of a closed chapter. As I drive past what was once a place of such betrayal, I wonder whether healing means rebuilding broken relationships or simply making peace with their absence in our lives. Sometimes the strongest family ties are the ones we create ourselves. What would you choose? Working to repair broken bonds or investing in the chosen family who prove their loyalty? I turn onto my street, toward my home, toward my foundation. Either way, the choice is finally, completely mine.